Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Before starting the video, please subscribe and keep watching for more details videos. Coco Gauff makes honest admission about playing mandatory WTA stop before US Open, after having a wonderful clay court season, where she reached the finals in Madrid and Rome, before lifting the second major title of her career at Roland Garros. Everyone expected a similar run from Coco Gauff on grass. At first, she was knocked out of the grass court championships in Berlin in her very first match. It was followed by yet another shocking early exit from Wimbledon. Nothing went her way in the first-round match against Diana Yastremska at Wimbledon. However, now it's time for Gauff to bounce back, and she couldn't have asked for a better stage to do that. After her disappointing exit from Wimbledon, Coco Gauff admitted she was disappointed and struggling in the locker room. She said she doesn't really like losing, and she was quite disappointed with the way she performed in that match. However, having said that, Gauff also mentioned, "Obviously, I'm not going to dwell on this too long, because I want to do well at the US Open. Maybe losing in the first round here isn't the worst thing in the world, because I have time to reset." Coco Gauff has already played 41 matches this season, and she has won 31 of them. Amid an already jam-packed schedule, Gauff has now decided to take part in the WTA 1000 event in Montreal. One of the reasons is that it is a WTA 1000, and it is mandatory to play them laughs. "Seriously, it's a great tournament, so I try not to miss any of these," said Gauff. She further went on to add, "Obviously, being American, I am very close to home, so it's a very easy, very pleasant trip for me. I always enjoy it a lot here. The people are super affectionate. Also, I really like the change that happens every summer between Toronto and Montreal. It makes you approach the tournaments with a lot of freshness, as if everything were new." Coco Gauff will start her campaign in this tournament against Danielle Collins. This will be her first meeting with Danny Mal. About who will have the last laugh of their very first meeting, only time will tell. But before that, here is a rundown of Gauff's pre-match interview. Despite being handed a tricky draw, Coco Gauff claimed that she's extremely happy to be back in Montreal, and now she's hoping to have a good start on hard courts. Last year, she was defeated by Diana Schneider in the R16 by 4-6, 1-6. This year, she hopes to make a better run. During her interview, she shed light on her French Open campaign, saying, "It was a very special moment, a dream title, perhaps also because it is a surface that I have always felt very comfortable on." She added that before this tournament, she had only one title in her entire career on clay, and that too came in a minor event, WTA 250. But having a title of this magnitude on clay now means a lot to her, Gauff said. However, both Roland Garros and Wimbledon are things of past now, and what lies ahead is to repeat a similar feat at the US Open, which she had done almost 2 years ago. Speaking about this challenge of changing surfaces, Coco Gauff went on to add, "Tennis forces you to constantly adapt to new situations, so you always have to be prepared for those changes. So now my intention is to repeat the same play and have a good North American swing on cement." Will Coco Gauff fare better on the North American hard courts? Remember what American legend John McEnroe had said about Coco Gauff in 2019, after witnessing Gauff's incredible 6-4 win against the 5-time Wimbledon champion, Venus Williams. In that first-round battle, McEnroe said, "Gauff's not only physically mature, but also mentally. I look at the way she plays. If she's not number one in the world by 20, I will be absolutely shocked." Only 5 teenagers in the history of the sport had managed to reach the top of the WTA singles rankings so far. Although Gauff is yet to reach that spot, the 21-year-old could get a chance to reduce the gap with the current world number one, with an impressive performance at the North American hardcourt swing. Aryna Sabalenka has a good lead at the top of the WTA rankings. She is currently on 12,420 points and has a 4,751 lead over the world number 2, Coco Gauff. With such a big lead, the Belarusian is set to retain her crown for at least a couple more months. But things could become a bit tricky if Coco Gauff manages to find some good footing in these upcoming tournaments. Last year, Sabalenka won the US Open title, so she will have 2,000 ranking points to defend. Although Coco Gauff was eliminated in the R16 of the U.S. Open last year, she still has a significant number of ranking points to defend from her title triumphs at the WTA Finals and the China Open. She's currently the closest person to catching up to Sabalenka in the singles ranking. In 2024, Gauff took part in the Canadian Open and reached the third round. So, she has a chance of closing the difference by 120 points. With Sabalenka's absence, Gauff will lead the draw here as the #1 seed. Last year, Gauff didn't fare too well in the North American campaigns, but this year, if she manages to put up a good show, she'll definitely have the chance to reduce the gap with the world #1. Coco Gauff stood in the shadow of Arthur Ashe Stadium, her eyes gleaming with focus, but tinged with something else, an honesty rarely voiced by athletes in the glare of global attention. It was a few days before the 2025 U.S. Open, and the media had already descended upon New York like bees to nectar. Gauff had just wrapped up a grueling run at the Canadian Open, and next up was the Cincinnati Masters, officially a mandatory WTA stop before the final Grand Slam of the year. But this year, Coco had something to say about it. Something real. The mental toll of mandatory. I'll be honest. Coco began during a media session following her third round win in Montreal, her tone sincere yet poised. Sometimes, the mandatory stops don't feel like preparation. They feel like obligation. That confession rippled through the tennis world like a rogue wave. Gauff had never been one to hide behind cliches, but this felt like an unusually open look behind the curtain of elite competition. At 21, she had already become one of the tour's brightest stars, and also one of its most scrutinized. To the fans, we're always smiling, competing, doing press. But there are moments, especially before the U.S. Open, where your body and mind are just craving silence. And instead, we're on another flight to another city because, well, it's mandatory. Her words weren't a jab at the WTA or the sport. They were more like a diary entry left open in the public square, a rare moment of vulnerability from a player seen as both a prodigy and a champion. Between responsibility and readiness, the Cincinnati Open, like many WTA 1000 events, plays a crucial role in the hard-court season. Rankings, seeding, and momentum all hinge on these tournaments. For a player of Coco's caliber, currently ranked #3 in the world, it's not just about collecting points. It's about managing a season without collapsing under its weight. I've learned the hard way, she said. There were years when I thought playing everything made me stronger. But now I know better. The more you climb, the more strategic you have to be. She wasn't alone in that thinking. Just a week before her statement, Aryna Sabalenka had opted out of doubles in Canada to conserve energy, and Iga Swiatek had spoken about emotional overload. The conversation was shifting, and Coco was leading it with candor. Flashback, the 2024 burnout. To understand Gauff's honesty, one only had to look back to the previous season. In 2024, she played a full slate leading up to the U.S. Open, Washington, Montreal, Cincinnati. She entered New York exhausted, mentally and physically. Despite being a favorite, she bowed out in the quarterfinals after a sluggish performance that saw her struggle with unforced errors and frustration. That loss haunted me more than any other, she admitted. Not because I played bad tennis, but because I had nothing left in the tank. I'd burned out before I got to the starting line. That experience reshaped her entire philosophy. And in 2025, she wasn't afraid to talk about it. The balancing act. So, what does it mean to be Coco Gauff right now? Still just 21, a Grand Slam champion, Olympic hopeful, brand ambassador, and voice for youth? It means being real, she said, smiling as she adjusted her cap. I love this sport. I'm so grateful for what it's given me. But I also want to stay in it long enough to enjoy it, not just survive it. Her solution this year was elegant yet bold. Play Montreal, skip doubles, focus on recovery, and enter Cincinnati with a clear purpose, not to win at all costs, but to sharpen her tools. She would treat it as a dress rehearsal, not a war. And the WTA? To their credit, they listened. Officials allowed players more rest days between matches and shortened press obligations for top seeds who advanced deep into the tournament. It's not about skipping obligations, Gauff clarified. It's about optimizing performance. If I'm not my best self, then I'm not doing the tour or my fans any favors. Support from the locker room. Her honesty didn't go unnoticed among her peers. Jessica Pegula, her frequent doubles partner and mentor-like figure, backed her up. We push ourselves too hard sometimes. Coco's right to talk about this. It's brave, and it helps change the culture. Even WTA legends weighed in. Chris Evert, during a broadcast, said, Coco's wisdom goes beyond her years. Speaking about mental and physical limits doesn't make her weak. It makes her smart. The conversation began spreading. Should mandatory events be more flexible? Should players have a recovery window before slams? Should the WTA adopt the ADP's best of rule, where a certain number of tournaments are counted toward the final ranking regardless of total participation? Thanks to Coco's words, those questions had weight now. The road to Flushing Meadows. As Cincinnati neared, Gauff appeared lighter, not in preparation, but in spirit. Her practices were shorter, more targeted. She was seen meditating courtside, spending time with family, even painting in her hotel room, a newfound hobby that she said brings peace and color to a very structured life. In her opening press conference in Cincinnati, she doubled down. I'm not here to chase trophies right now. I'm here to fine-tune, to listen to my body, to enjoy this journey again. That week, she made it to the semifinals, playing with precision but without overexertion. When she withdrew before the final, citing tightness in her hamstring, she did so without apology. New York is the priority, she said, and so is my health. Fans react, a star on her own terms. While some critics online grumbled about entitlement or too much self-care, most fans rallied behind her. She's redefining what it means to be a champion. One fan wrote on social media, not just grinding through pain, but elevating the whole conversation. Another tweet that went viral read, Coco Gauff just proved that listening to your body is a power move. Rest isn't weakness, it's strategy. The New York Times featured her in a Sunday cover with the headline, Coco Gauff, the future of tennis on her own terms. The new age of authenticity. By the time she arrived at the Billie Jean King National Tennis Center, Coco was refreshed and fearless. In her pre-tournament press conference, a reporter asked if she felt nervous heading into the U.S. Open. Gauff smiled. No, I feel ready. Not just to play, but to own my story. And that, perhaps, was the bigger narrative. In an age of metrics, rankings, and media scrutiny, Gauff was creating a new path. One where authenticity was just as valuable as the trophy. Where speaking up wasn't an act of rebellion, but of wisdom. Where saying no to the grind meant saying yes to a longer, fuller, and more joyful career. Epilogue, the match point that matters most. As the U.S. Open unfolded, Gauff stormed through the early rounds with poise and efficiency. Each match seemed like a quiet vindication, not just of her talent, but of her choices. When she reached the finals, facing a fierce opponent under the lights of Ash Stadium, the crowd roared not just for the athlete, but for the human. The one who admitted her limits, embraced them, and turned them into strength.